If you only watched the first few episodes of Netflix's live-action adaptation of beloved anime Cowboy Bebop, you might be fooled into thinking its largest failings are the overwrought stylistic choices. But if you power through to the final episode, you'll discover something worse. A mostly original story with none of the style choices that at least make it visually stimulating. Here, I made a chart. In the middle of these extremes, there are 2 great episodes of a live-action Cowboy Bebop show. I know, I was surprised too. But the fact that these episodes get it right points to the larger issues plaguing the Netflix Bebop. This is the moment where I would normally give you some sort of spoiler warning or encourage you to go watch the thing before watching this video essay, but I can't in good conscience do that this time. I generally try to focus on the positive aspects of media that I really like. That's the kind of vibe I want to bring to my channel. And I can't physically bring myself to say that I like the Netflix Bebop. I was just taught not to lie. But I am fascinated by it, by everything that went right and wrong with it. And it's a lot in both directions. And I can promise that nothing I say here is unearned. The Netflix Bebop is like a child on Mother's Day trying to make the fanciest and most delicious breakfast that they can imagine, and it's just 8 kinds of cereal in one bowl and pancakes layered with whipped cream and leftover Easter candy, somehow both stale and overwhelming, the only edible bits made by a supervisory parent. The issues with the first half of the series lie largely in the writing and visual style of the show. The most obvious is the over-reliance on cursing and snarky dialogue that really just comes off as petulant.
Any more fortune cookies you want to crack open, or can we eat now?
You work at being an asshole?
No, actually it comes naturally, unlike your arm.
And I don't think this is the fault of the main actors, who I think actually all crush it. Cho nails the physical manifestation of Spike. Shakir's voice and affectation capture Jet's gruff tenderness, and Pineda's small facial expressions and comedic line delivery make some otherwise weak writing sound actually good.
Ugh, what is that?
Water.
Oh, beer, thank God.
The real issue is that the Netflix Bebop makes a bunch of changes to character backstories and plot structure, and those changes actively undermine the core themes of the original anime. Cowboy Bebop is about a bunch of cool idiots who are so obsessed with their past that they are constantly fucking up their futures. You might not appreciate it as a Cheeto-dusted teen watching Adult Swim in a partially renovated basement. Yes, that is a read on myself. But as an adult, it's hard not to feel its relevance. Interviews with the creators of Netflix Bebop emphasize how much they wanted to deepen what they describe as otherwise flat characters. The most obvious is with Julia and Vicious, who have a fully blown subplot in the show. But this is a weird choice for the themes of Cowboy Bebop. It's not an accident that we barely see them in the anime. These 2 are ghosts haunting Spike, so it doesn't make thematic sense to make them anything more than that. Also, the story for the Julia Vicious subplot is entirely new, and it is not an improvement on nothing. The Netflix Bebop eroded the themes of the original anime to the point where it's basically just a sci-fi space romp, and there's, hypothetically, nothing wrong with that. The issue is the visual style, which ranges from weird and surprising, to passingly annoying, to unwatchable. It has all the finesse of a high schooler trying to integrate 1920s slang into her day-to-day conversation. Yes, that's also a read on myself. And a burn on the Netflix Cowboy Bebop.
Should take off before those cherries get here.
Here are some really specific examples. The color grading. Mostly it's post-production, just flattening the image. Sometimes it's done in scene, and I want to give them props, but it's not well implemented. Like, clearly they know that having orange lights would nicely balance the overwhelming blue, but they're small and distant, and the scene is not framed to make use of them. The boot shot. This would be fine if it were once or twice, but the first 3 episodes each contain at least 1 boot shot. Some of them contain multiple. The framing. Often characters are framed directly facing each other, with lighting so dark that we can't see their expressions. That makes it hard to follow the emotional content of these scenes. This exact framing is in the movie, but you'll notice you can still see the characters' faces, because it's drawn. They're also having a much more interesting conversation, one that benefits from honing in on the dialogue. This scene does not benefit from that. This cool stunt is ruined by the framing. This doesn't actually support any of my other overarching points. I'm just so angry about it. The Dutch angles. Oh, the Dutch angles. Using the lean usually implies something about the scene or the characters visible, but not here. There is no purpose or reason here. But this is not a neutral angle. And the first time I watched the series, I binged it, and the shifting angles genuinely made me a little nauseated. These issues are only prevalent for the first half of the show. By the end, it's like the style was all used up. They were like, well, we can't use the boot shot a 9th time. This corresponds to an increase in original material, and we'll talk more about that later. The true great episodes are in this sweet spot, when the show hadn't entirely drained of style and hadn't totally pivoted to new content. Specifically, the episodes that delve into Jet and Faye's backstories. Darkside Tango has some of those weird style elements I mentioned, but here they have a purpose. The color grading on Jet's story and the way scenes are framed give it a noir detective flavor that matches his backstory. The live-action episodes are at least twice as long as the anime, but rather than trying to inject more plot into Jet's story, they give that time to a Faye and Spike B-plot. It's well-written and acted and pretty charming. Notably, the episode of the anime this is based on has a Faye-Jet conversation about his arm that I've always loved.
いい加減直せば。
直すって言ったろ。
その手よ。再生手術なんて今時大した値段じゃないでしょ。
この船は俺の船だ。この腕も俺の腕だ。
It sets up the fact that he's still obsessed with losing his arm and can't let himself heal in a physical or emotional sense. This exchange is in the live-action show, but it's not in the backstory episode. It's unanchored, and it's just sort of treated as like a sci-fi world-building detail. The Netflix Bebop underscores Jet's struggle by having a character point out that by seeking out this resolution to his past, he has effectively ruined his future, trapping him in a false version of his life forever. And that is some good shit. Galileo Hustle covers Faye's backstory, and it's one of my favorites in the anime. The Netflix version isn't as good as the Netflix Darkside Tango, and it's also way different from the original, but for maybe the only time in the live-action series, I think some of the changes actually improve upon the story. Instead of making Whitney a former romantic partner, she's a mother figure, which works largely because Christine Dunford absolutely crushes it. She's one of my favorite guest stars. She's just right on the edge of unctuous, but somehow still breezy and charming. Ugh, she's so good. There's a lot in this episode that doesn't work. Your mileage with the ending will vary. But I found Whitney and Faye's interactions to be refreshing.
You're a survivor, Faye. Like Mom? I'm a survivor because of you.
Making Whitney a mother figure sets up an interesting struggle for Faye. Accept your imperfect future, which is at least knowable, or chase the mystery of the past, which may never be resolved. That is some good, compelling shit. Unfortunately, they cut out the original retro technology quest from the anime, which underscores the impossibility of Faye's search, and which also I just personally really like. It's clear that they intended Season 2 Faye to find more answers, but, well. The Netflix Bebop also erases the medical debt aspect from Faye's backstory, because, you know, why would you want your sci-fi show to shine a light on such relevant, timely topics? But it still captures the heart of what's good about Faye's story, the desire to find out who she was in order to understand who she is now. The subplot has Jet trying to attend his daughter's recital. The fact that this is documented in absentia by her everyday parents nicely complements Faye's home video, which was made by somebody who loved her, and who now seems to be absent. Now, you may be tempted to watch the episode that comes between the two of these binary two-step. It'll autoplay, you think. It's only 50 minutes. How bad could it be? Don't. Most of the episodes just fail to engage the central themes of Cowboy Bebop. This one actively works against it. Spike is caught in a rogue AI that's trying to download his brain. It's implied that if Spike gives up his emotional tether, aka Julia, he'll be destroyed. So if Spike is finally able to move on emotionally from Julia, he'll be in danger? It doesn't make any sense. The only good part of this episode is the lesbian subplot, but even that is mismanaged because they cast somebody who looks very similar to Faye and set scenes so they're mirroring each other. This is a thankfully outdated trope, but there was a time when the homophobic punchline for gay couples was that they looked identical or had the same first name because being gay was supposed to be the ultimate narcissism. This trope quietly died out well over a decade ago, and it's so annoying because otherwise this is a really well-written and beautiful scene. By the end of the season, the overarching plot of the Netflix Bebop abandons the source material to do something pretty much entirely new. I didn't see anybody complain about the changes they made to Julia's story, which I think means I'm the only person on pre-Gatecrash Earth that finished watching this show. Overall, the sections with Julia are treated with more seriousness and dignity, and have a more toned-down aesthetic. Very few poop or testicle jokes in these sections. But not none! As the series goes on, there's more Julia vicious stuff, so there's less wild, wacky style. In action, this translates to a feeling of disdain for the original Cowboy Bebop material, as though it needed to be propped up with elaborate, goofy antics, or made more bearable with cinematic tricks. And this is borne out by the way the production staff has talked about the original. In an interview, the showrunner said, "I tilled the land in the fertile soil of the anime, and this is the fruit I yielded." It's pretty incredible hubris to look at one of the most beloved animes of all time and think, I could do better. But Cowboy Bebop is not perfect, and there are things that could be changed or updated. And reconfigurations of any story, be they fanfics, entries in a franchise, or full adaptations, they allow new creators to change aspects that feel outdated or broken, while preserving ideas that still feel relevant. It's the malleability of oral tradition, but in a way that's acceptable for a culture that overly privileges recorded texts. But after watching the Netflix Bebop twice now, I could not tell you what the showrunner hoped to preserve from the original other than the music. Because it's not the characters, and it's not the plots, and it's not the world building, and it's not the themes. So what is it? My best guess is that the showrunner watched Cowboy Bebop and thought it was cool and wanted to capture that ineffable coolness. And I understand that yearning when you experience some incredible art and want desperately to capture some of that spark in your own work. But the coolness of Cowboy Bebop was never just in the aesthetic. The anime will probably still be talked about for another 25 years, and it's not because of Yoko Kanno's incredible soundtrack. Or it's not just because of Yoko Kanno. It's a little bit because of Yoko Kanno's incredible soundtrack. The coolness was always in the complexity, and it's a complexity that the Netflix Bebop didn't even try to tangle with. Thank you for watching, and a special thank you to Danielle, Welch, and Adamas, who I've heard are the only cowboys to have successfully claimed a bounty on an AI. What? I cut a lot of content from this script. A lot. I mean like a lot. I mean like 3,000 words. And this script is itself 2,000 words. I cut more words from this script than I ended up keeping because I wanted to keep it on theme and on point and on message. But a lot of the words that I cut, you'll find in the companion video that I released for patrons only at patreon.com/thejenna. In particular, my thoughts about whether or not I like the show. Because I don't know, and I'm going to work through that in this video. Patrons get access to secret background videos, like the one that I'm going to make for this one, as well as the chance to vote in polls and decide sort of what the direction of this channel goes in. There should be a poll up right now, in fact, about what my January video is going to be. Patreon.com/thejenna. If there is a hell, I'm sure this is how it smells. I love that line.